He also talked a little bit, and this was recent, and I just wanted to get this in there, and then eventually we'll move away totally. But he did talk briefly about a remake. Let me talk about this a little bit. There's been plenty of talk about the Final Fantasy VII remake, but are there any plans for an HD remake of Dragon Quest or Dragon Quest II? I hope it is being considered. That was what the guy asked him. This is on Silicon Era. Yu Miyake, series executive producer, said, I want to do it. After making Dragon Quest XI, I learned that it can be pretty tough to make a full HD game. It's kind of a weird thing to say. Maybe that's a language thing. Where to concentrate our resources and such. We talked about a Dragon Quest III remake about 4 to 5 years ago. But if anything, we should probably make Dragon Quest XII instead. And he laughs. There are also other series, and we have a new development line, so perhaps when the timing is right. For now, we don't have any plans for a Dragon Quest III remake, but there's still room for consideration.
There's a ton of versions of this game, a surprising amount.
Yeah.
There's, of course, the original NES cartridge. Then they had the technically Super Nintendo version, which is only in Japan, legitimately. There's the Game Boy Color cartridge. Then there's phone ports. Then there's the port of the phone port to the Switch.
That's true.
And so now there's speculation about a possible remake for either the first two games and or three. Is that something you're interested in?
I think yes. I am interested in a 1 through... You have to do all three, though. A 1 through 3 remake. Although, I don't know if I'd put them all in the same game. Maybe still split them up.
Because, you could do like one of those like trilogy packs.
Yeah.
Where you can pick from the games.
Exactly. Yeah, something like that. Because I wouldn't want to put them all together because I think 3 loses some of the wow factor if you just kind of put it all in the same thing. And you really couldn't transition from 1 to 2 to 3 very well anyway. I mean, you could get creative and find a way. But I think keeping them separate is the right idea.
Well, technically, that's what they did on the Game Boy Color, too, because they had the Dragon Quest 1 and 2 cartridge, and then they had the Dragon Quest 3 cart.
Mm-hmm.
So they were already thinking in that line. Now, let's talk about this. This is pretty interesting. Dragon Quest 3 is a precursor to the first two games, but it's the third game. It's the beginning and the end.
Right.
Do you find it odd, or do you enjoy playing this game after having come fresh off of 1 and 2?
I love it. I love that you could almost see it. Well, no, from a timeline perspective, it's not, but from a player's perspective, it's almost cyclical. You play 1 and 2 and you see the progression, not in the actual game, but in the development of the game, it getting better and better. And then 3 is the masterpiece, and then ironically leads you back to thinking about 1 and 2 again, which is fun and different than most RPGs I can think of. How about you?
Yeah, it was weird for me to step back. And also, the connections to the first two games aren't super apparent early on. As the game progresses, you see those connections. So by the end, I was like, oh, okay. But early on, I was like, it's a little jarring stepping back in the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing, like how this pre-folds everything that comes.
Yeah. I could see modern gamers not being too thrilled, but there are other games that have put themselves as sequels and then turned out to be prequels. Metal Gear Solid is one. That game's kind of a mess anyway, but it's certainly still counts. And I'm sure there's a million others. And I know there's more, but they're not coming to my head right now. But I think it's acceptable. I think what Dragon Quest III delivers is the fact that it's the big twist, that it's the prequel, makes it more unique than those, because those like, it's kind of the selling point is that it's a prequel. This one, you have no idea. It might as well be a different game for 80% of it.
So on that note, would it make sense to play this game either in isolation or prior to 1 and 2?
That is a very good question. It's a catch-22 because 3 is basically it 3 is a full-fledged Dragon Quest game for what we know Dragon Quest as. Um so it ironically makes it difficult to go back to the games it's pointing you to because they're, one is as about as basic as you can get, and 2 is like, it's like, remember 3? Okay, let's strip away like half of the good points of that, and then you have 2. Um, I don't. I would still keep the order of play the same. And I think it makes three's wow factor even better once you realize what it is.
Oh yeah, if you can put up with the technical limitations of the first two games and even just the gameplay limitations for the genre of the turn-based RPG and what was, readily available at the time, you're in for a treat with 3.
Hmm. Yeah, it's great that it wraps itself up in such a nice bow. You almost think it should be the end of the NES thing, but I guess it didn't quite work out that
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
Yeah, it feels like when you say that you beat 1 through 3 and know about it, you're like, oh yeah, I played the NES lineage of Dragon Quest and it was pretty good. You could almost forget that 4 was also tacked on at the end, and is, I
Oh
think,
yeah.
you and I consider probably better.
Oh yeah.
um, yeah.
Once you get past this trilogy, the rest of the series is a different ballpark.
Oh yeah, and I think both of us are very, very excited.
Yeah.